How would you describe Chainsaw Man? One would classify it as a shonen, a classification for manga that has young boys as its main target demographics. You see, manga culture has this tendency to use tropes and pastiche from previous stories of the same genre. And in that way, Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man is indeed a shonen. It has the two guys, one girl dynamic, a hot-headed and dim-witted male lead, and since you click on the video, so many other tropes that you may already know. So if Chainsaw Man is a shonen, then why does it feels so different? Not just in the sense of its vibe or plot or anything related to its diegetic elements, but also, and especially so in my opinion, in its community. In the amount of ideas and threads and active discussion regarding this specific title that didn't try to put its characters on a fantasy power scale. The discussions surrounding Chainsaw Man often come with nuance for its themes and such. Like, this is not a typical phenomena in the land of shonen, and trust me when I say this because I am an old hat within this land. So let me probe you with this essay's opening question. If not shonen, how would you describe Chainsaw Man? Dark fantasy. Chainsaw Man, free from its age-based demographics classification, would be considered a dark fantasy comic. And with that classification, we can put Chainsaw Man side by side with other dark fantasy comics, not only those that came from Japan, but also those across its ocean. Putting Chainsaw Man this way side by side with its genre contemporaries, I started noticing stuff. Parallels between Chainsaw Man as my favorite manga and my favorite comic book title of all time.
I am the king of dreams, ruler of the nightmare realms.
These two works are considered dark fantasy comics. Both titles played with the idea of personification of concepts, and both put emphasis on hopes and dreams as their main theme. Disclaimer, by putting up this video on the internet, I am not declaring that Fujimoto copied the work of other artists. I am putting up this video to appreciate the intertextuality that I found from my favorite pieces of work. When a person creates art, they did so with the help from tidbits of cultures that surrounds them, that stands before them. One person standing on the shoulders of giants. This video aimed to appreciate and celebrate this, to appreciate and celebrate the themes and such across different works of art. And with that being said, let us meet the Lord of the Dreaming, Morpheus, colloquially known as the Sandman. The first issue of the Sandman opened with a mystical plot to capture death, to make her submit, to create a world where no one need ever die. And yes, I did say her, because in the world of the Sandman, death took the form of a woman. Anyway, the plot to capture death went awry. Instead of capturing Lady Death, the group found themselves with another being, one that was unable to grant them immortality. Her brother, Dream the Sandman, a being that oversees the realm of dreams and imagination. He was the wrong guy. The Sandman is a cold man. He is stern, dutiful, and always kept a distance with his subjects and siblings. And yes, he has more than one sibling. But one thing to get from this fact is that he is unlike his other siblings. Whereas most of his siblings took interest in humanity, the Sandman would rather much observe them from a distance. Whereas his siblings often visit the human world, the Sandman dwell mostly in his castle, making the mis-executed plan by the group a perfect narrative launchpad for a riches to rags story. Stripped out of his power, the Sandman must go on a journey to gain them back. A journey that leads him to interact with his subjects, siblings, and humanity. A journey that would change him into a better deity, and one that would humanize him. This is one of many hooks of the Sandman by Neil Gaiman. And speaking of hook, now I'll try to hook you guys with what I think might be the best parallel between the Sandman and Chainsaw Man. And that hook rely on a somewhat popular theory that Pochita's true name and identity is the Hope Devil. Chainsaw Man has a lot of diegetic theories out there, but unlike most, I do believe this theory is most likely to be true. And more importantly, I do believe that this theory has some thematic importance to be understood. I promise you that I'll get back into that theory later in the video, but for now, let me tell you a tale of what would happen when the manifestation of dream visits hell. On one journey to get his power back, the Sandman must travel to hell. His helmet, which contains some of his power, has been stolen by a devil, and Sandman went to hell to obtain it back. To achieve that goal, he must face the devil in a game, the oldest game. Shonen readers would be familiar with the game since the oldest game is essentially a metaphysical game of power scaling. Two beings shall state things that would overwhelm in power over the opponent's thing. The game starts small, with the devil choosing a dire wolf.
I am a dire wolf, prey-stalking, lethal prowler.
Then, the Sandman countered him with a hunter that would hunt and defeats the wolf. The game then would go on and on with this pattern. Snake that defeats spider, an ox that would stomp the snake, and so on. Until the scale of the game went cosmic. Supernova that would burn a planet and all living things within. The universe that encompasses all things, and in the end, the devil present anti-life, the dark at the end of everything, even a universe. What could possibly be stronger than that? Hope. Silence has taken a hold of the stage, and with it, all parties involved agreed that there's nothing that could kill hope. So the game ended then and there. The Sandman reclaimed his helmet and set out to leave hell, with only a hiccup.
Look out there, Morpheus. Tell us, why should we let you leave? Helmet or no, you have no power here. After all, what power have dreams in hell?
Tell me, Lucifer Morningstar, what power would hell have if those here imprisoned were not able to dream of heaven?
In the world of Chainsaw Man, concepts took physical forms as devils, beings that fueled on fear to scale their powers up. The more feared a concept, the stronger the devil that represents that concept. But in the world of Chainsaw Man, one of the strongest devil isn't born out of human fear. It is instead born out of devils. And the most weird devil in that category is the Chainsaw Devil, the hero of hell. According to Makima, the leading antagonist of Chainsaw Man Part 1, Chainsaw Man acquired the title of the devil that devils feared most by becoming the only being in the universe that could truly erase a concept. Devils in the world of Chainsaw Man don't die, they instead reincarnate into different form. But by having Chainsaw Man eats them, they will die a true death, by also having the concept that they represent erased from the world. In other words, the stomach of Chainsaw Man has anti-memetics property. That is why he is the most feared devil by devils. But what about his other title, the Hero of Hell? Makima said that the Hero of Hell would come to those who cries for help. The crier would ask for Chainsaw Man to eliminate the target, and he eventually will, but he will also kill the one who called for his help. However, is that truly the case? Does it even make sense that he could get the title of Hero of Hell but also being an asshole to those who cries for his help? I mean, we have seen this nature of his in action before, but the last time we saw it, we didn't see him cut up Kobeni who cried for help. So, can we trust Makima's words on this? Did she just straight up lie to Kishibe when she exposed all of this information? Or did she just simply misunderstood Chainsaw Man's nature? For me, the latter option is more likely to be the intended answer, because people misunderstanding Chainsaw Man is one of the core theme of the manga. I mean, the first half of part 2 essentially boils down to that. So, let me ask you again, how did the Chainsaw Devil get his title of being the hero of hell? To answer that question, we need to know the original name of the Chainsaw Devil. We need to know what concept he represents. And thanks to the last chapter of the manga, we are more than sure of that original name. We know that he's not representing the concept of chainsaw because chainsaw still exists in the world despite Pochita eating himself in the end. But we do know that there is a word missing in the new timeline. And as English readers, most of us only miss the word simply because of translation issue. The last chapter of Chainsaw Man paralleled the first. Young Denji met up with the zombified Yakuza boss where he said this sentence to Denji. What we want is the devil's power, and what I want is the death of all devil hunters. The English version of both chapters has no difference in wording nor structure, but the Japanese version intentionally swapped out a word during this exchange, and that word is hope. The word hope that was used in chapter 1 was missing in the final chapter, replaced by the word want. So in the Japanese version, chapter 1 Zombie Devil said what we hope for, while the final chapter Zombie Devil instead said what we want. The word hope is implied missing in the new timeline, and I believe this is intentional, because Fujimoto has played with wordplay like this before. But now the question is, why is this important? I mean, what is the narrative significance of Pochita actually being the Hope Devil? Two things came to my mind when I was pondering the question. The first thing is that it made most of Pochita's dialogue made sense. All major characters in Chainsaw Man at some point in the story spoke about their hopes and dreams. But as far as I know, Pochita is the only character who intimately talk about dreams that is not only his, but others as well. Part 1 and Part 2 of the manga ended with Pochita talking and dissecting his dream, the Control Devils, and Denji's. And also, there's this small thing that bothered me from the ending of Part 1. How come Pochita dissect the true nature of Control Devil's dream? It would have only made sense if he intimately knew her before, or if understanding the nature of someone else's dream is a part of his abilities. If this were true, then it is a neat diegetic explanation for Pochita's character as the Hope Devil. But there is one more idea that I believe would be more compelling in terms of thematic significance. Diegetic exploration is fun and all, but at the end of the day, Chainsaw Man will be remembered for its excellent game of, themes and such. The second thing that came to my mind is that Pochita being the Hope Devil would answer two things. The first one being why Hell's residents called him the hero of Hell, and the second one being why some devils feared him and the others worship him. One of the most famous quotes regarding the biblical understanding of hell came from Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. The book is basically a self-insert narrative poem about the author's adventure in hell. According to his writing, inscribed on the gate of hell is this phrase that would even overshadow his name in popularity: "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." For according to Dante, in hell, holding on to hope is a futile act. But hundreds of years later, Neil Gaiman, the writer behind the Sandman, challenged this idea with these two panels. The Sandman, who represent the concept of dream, confidently telling the residents of hell and its ruler that dreams kept hope alive in hell, hope for the devils to dream of heaven, of alternate path. And this rhetoric by the Sandman worked out narratively, because sometimes later after the incident, hell would be emptied by its ruler. Lucifer, the ruler of hell, quits his job He abandoned his preordained role to find something else to look for. He found his alternate path. He changed. It turns out, hope do exist in hell, and dream are the key to keep it alive. For without dream, none could imagine another path. And here we are, 2 decades after the last issue of the Sandman was published, witnessing yet another story with devils ending up on alternate path to their previous one. Many devils from the story whom preordained nature was that of hostility toward humans ended up humanized by their experience on Earth. Power, Nayuta, Angel, and even Yoru, the literal war devil whom often stubbornly state that devil is different than human, ended up sleeping in the end. Literally. While her words of contemplation are what you would expect came out of a psychopath's mouth, her action in the end was born out of empathy. The personification of hope bore chainsaws as his limbs and an appendix that erased concepts. But his only dream was to be hugged. And seeing that he truly cared for others' hopes and dreams, maybe he also dreamt of alternate paths for his brethren? Maybe that is why most denizens of hell are afraid of him, while some worship him. The existence of the horsemen, primal devils, and Chainsaw Man followers implied that hell has some sort of a hierarchy. A hierarchy with shapes and mechanism we are not certain of, but we know for certain that he had followers. The last thing they heard before incarnating to Earth was the sound of chainsaws, and they woke up in a different body with little to no memory of their old life in hell and started a new life. Until Makima and her organization showed up, of course. I do think it would be quite beautiful if the Devil of Hope, whom also the most feared devil by devils, is the one that breathes new life, new paths for those who yearns for it. Maybe that's why many denizens of hell wage war upon him, for his influence might lead to the breaking of the structure of hell, to the breaking of the hierarchy. For devils aren't meant to live other than something that was preordained to them. Those devils who long for a new life then called for hope to come. And he came, bearing chainsaws, giving new life to those who ask, while also devouring those who threaten hope to the new world. It is quite poetic, and maybe just a coincidence that chainsaw were originally not an instrument for lumber, but that of childbirth, an instrument that literally helped birth hope. And in the end, the Hope Devil ate himself to birth a new world, one where the word hope didn't exist. But that doesn't mean that hope was forever gone, because even against anti-life, the dark, at the end of everything, hope persists. As long as people have the ability to dream, hope shall reborn anew.
Dream is the second brother I have lost. He was a creature of hope, for dreams are hopes and echoes of hopes.